All right, if you're like me and you have a Skywatcher Adventure 2, 2i, Wi-Fi, whatever version you may have, and have had some tracking issues with it, then I have a solution for you, and it's very simple. Now, going back a couple years, right after they first came out, I got it right on the first or second wave of releases when they had. And I, of course, like most people watch YouTube channels, saw, wow, these are looking great. They're easy to set up. They make long exposure pictures possible. And I got it, brought it in, and immediately had star trails. And it would really set in when I would turn on the dial on the app, or turn on the dial on the mount, and everything would work great for about 5 minutes, and then star trails will start. And I kept thinking, there's something wrong, I'm doing something wrong. I watch more videos, read more things online. Same problem. I could turn the app on, turn it on to celestial mode, turn the mount on to celestial mode. 5 minutes worth of exposures would be sharp and crisp, and then star trails would start. And it wouldn't just be a little bit, it would be like almost like the mount was on runaway mode. So I ended up giving up. I couldn't find any help as far as in the forums. I'd only seen a couple people with similar problems like me, in which case people had said, you may have a defective mount, and go that way. Well, life happened, and it kind of got pushed to the side. And by the time I was ready to look at it again, I was way outside of any kind of warranty I could have had. And so I was like, well, I have a huge paperweight here that I didn't deal with like I should have done when the problem came up, and I'm stuck. So I started using other things that kind of just sat there. Well, fast forward to a couple months ago, and I'd been trying some luck with a cheap Celestron mount, and had some limited success with it. I'm like, you know what? And I hear these old Skywatcher videos start popping up again. I'm like, gosh, it's a shame that I can't get this thing to work. And then I got to remember, like, really does this make sense? Maybe it was my polar. Maybe it was because I was much less experienced with polar alignment, and I just, I thought I wasn't making mistakes, and I was, and now I'm a little bit better at it. Let me try it again. So I go through the whole thing again, setting it up, polar aligning, double checking, triple checking polar alignment, turn it on, same problem. And I'm like, you know what? This is crazy. I put it in the app mode, control it in the app mode. It could go faster, it could go slower. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. So then I go back looking online again, and come to find out, there were, of course, firmware updates to it. And this problem now, a couple years later, has become something that was much more widely experienced by people, and I wasn't the only one. It just so happened to be that I was such an early adopter of the thing that the problem that I had, people apparently weren't having. So, best I can see is that Skywatcher, I've seen both versions, but basically Skywatcher at some point figured out they had a problem, and they knew they had to release a firmware update to it. So I found the latest firmware update to it, and flashed it to the mount, and my problem has went away completely. And I've been able to take a few pictures with it now, and it has just been absolutely amazing. I'm amazed at how good of a piece of tech this is now that mine works properly. And I can see why so many people were talking so much, giving it so much praise when this thing first came out, for people that had devices that were working properly. So I'm going to show you here today how to update the firmware. So first, you go to skywatcher.com, and it's very simple. Make sure you got your mount sitting in front of you. Make sure you've got batteries in your mount or a power supply hooked into your mount. And actually, no, don't do the power supply, because you need your USB port, and I'm not sure if it'll power off the USB port alone. So make sure you've got batteries in your mount, and put it in front of you. Get the correct USB cable, have it ready to go. Go to starwatcher.com and go to support and software and firmware. Now you're going to need two pieces of software from two different spots. First, go to motor controllers right here, and you want to download the appropriate motor controller for your Skywatcher. Now mine was the I think the Wi-Fi version here. I'm not exactly sure. I'll see it in a second. So download that, unzip it to your folder, or download that and leave it for a second. Go to the Star Adventure section right here and find the appropriate firmware version for you. Now this has got the console, which you can also download, and you can use the console just like you have on your phone, also connected via a USB cable or through Wi-Fi, the same. So scroll down, and you want to find the latest version of the Star Adventure 2, or whatever version Star Adventure you have. Mine is this one, the 2i version 3.16. This is the version that I downloaded. All right, and it says Wi-Fi version. This is the 3.11 non-Wi-Fi version. So whatever version is the latest for you, download that. All right. Go into your unzip your firmware. Where is it at here? Unzip firmware and to a folder, and then load it up, and it'll bring up this right here. Now I don't know what order you need to do these, and I plugged in my Star Adventurer first and had it load up and everything, and then I brought this up. Do whatever you want to. I would suggest not bringing this up until you have your Star Adventurer plugged in. So plug your Star Adventurer in to the computer via USB, set it to app mode, and then wait and watch Windows find it, install it. And what you want to look for is what COM Windows puts it on. Now Windows put mine, when I had it plugged in, on COM 3, and it'll come up and say Star Adventurer connected to COM 3 or COM whatever. Pay attention to that, and then when you bring up, once you see that and it says drivers installed successfully, bring this up, and then tell it, when you have more than one, like when I did mine, this was grayed out until it installed it on COM 3, and then I could click here and select COM 3, so just do that. You can do auto detect COM port, and it may do that. Mine didn't, so just FYI. And then using SendScan Hand Controller PC Direct Mode, that tells you you're connecting directly to the mount. Alright, then browse, and you want to browse to the firmware that you downloaded and unzipped, and tell it, click there, open. Alright, and then you tell it update, and it'll go through. It takes a few minutes, does its little thing. Done. I closed out the firmware loader, I turned off the Star Adventure, and then I unplugged it. And from there, my mount was fixed. No problems, perfect stars, I got all the way up to 3 minutes in some exposures. And so that took me to making pictures like this. Now you may not like this picture. You see I need a field flattener, so just ignore that. But this went to taking, this right here is an example of what it took me to. Now these were 18-second exposures because of Orion being so bright. All right, but even I couldn't even get 18 seconds before. When it would start trailing, I couldn't even get that. Now to give you an example of what it'll take you to, this is using a Canon camera and a Rokinon 135 lens, and you can see I got Orion, Running Man, Horsehead, and Flaming in the same frame. And this was kind of just me doing it just to see if I could do it, and of course it's not a perfect picture, but just to seeing if I could do it and see if it would do trailing. Now these shots were 2-minute exposures, and there is no way I could have gotten 2-minute exposures out of the Star Adventure before. Now it would have, like I said, when you first turn on the mount to celestial mode, it would do it for about 5-10 minutes, and then it would start star trailing, and then it was like you had the button on the mount pressed down the whole time. It was you couldn't see what you were looking at. So, bottom line, this is an example of what it takes you to. Now, this picture may not be to your taste, but I say that to say 2-minute exposures, and what you're able to get is all this fine detail that would be impossible in the in the old way the mount would work, and it didn't work whatsoever. So all this fine detail in all these nebulae that were impossible to get before. So I would suggest doing that, doing it in the order that I said, and it worked for me. And like I said, it took my pictures from being unusable. Like literally, I would have to sit there if I was trying to use this mount. I would have to sit there and turn the mount on and off every 5 minutes to get it to not do that. And so, which I did, until I got tired of using it and not being able to use anything. So it took it from there to this. This picture was taken literally running all night. I sit there, I set it up. As soon as Orion rose rose in the east, I set it, and it ran all the way until morning, taking exposures. And not once did the picture get out of frame. Not once did I get star trailing, except for periodic error. But I'm gonna venture to say as much as 80% of the pics or the photos in this imaging run were pinpoints. The stars were pinpoints. So the periodic error even wasn't a huge problem compared to what it could have been. And I think, I think it's a great picture based on what my skill level is, but something that would have been completely unusable the way it was before. So I hope this has been helpful. I hope this has been somewhat easy to follow, and clear skies and good luck with taking pics. Thanks.